Hi there, it's Touek with Breathwork Beats. Welcome to another video tutorial. In today's video I wanted to show you how I approach creating longer 20 to 30 minutes evolving music pieces for breathing exercises like box breathing and coherent breathing. And as an example, I picked one of my sessions for the box breathing exercise that I've created 2 years ago. It's one of my most popular videos on the channel. People really get the feeling of this session and really enjoyed the soundtrack for it because it's evolving throughout the period of the whole 30 minutes. So in this video I wanted to show you some tips on how I approach this kind of arrangement for a longer breathing session to make the longer music journeys much more interesting for the breather, to help the breather to go through the whole period of 20 to 30 minutes and make it an interesting experience. So let's dive into the session. As you can see on my first clip, I have my MIDI clip, which doesn't include any sounds. This is just a visual representation of my whole arrangement. If we zoom in closer, you can see that there is a 30 minutes marker here. So at the beginning, I was approaching this session to create a 30-minute lasting piece. And as you can see, these blocks are telling me that this is the first chord progression of this session. Another part is second chord progression. The second part of this whole 30-minute journey is again repeating the first progression, but with a little bit more nuanced melody patterns, as well as the second progression also with much more evolved structure and different melodies adding on the top of this second progression. Another important thing, I've created this session in the 40 BPM tempo. The reason for that is simply when the tempo is on 40 BPM, I am sure that every interval that one piece of music is going to start and end is going to last precisely 6 seconds. As you can see, this is 6 seconds mark here, 12 seconds mark, 18 seconds mark, and 24 seconds mark. And these are the intervals for my inhale for 6 seconds, hold on the inhale for 6 seconds, exhale for 6 seconds, and hold for the exhale on 6 seconds as well. If you want to create a coherent breathing exercise or box breathing exercise, 40 BPM is the way to go. Then you are sure that every piece of music is right on the grid and you can build your music in the same intervals and then copy paste these pieces of music throughout the whole period of the whole journey, and then you are not confused with the tempo and it's always on the 6 seconds mark. So 40 BPM and creating music to the grid will guarantee you that you are going to create 6 seconds inhales and exhales throughout the whole period of 20 to 30 minutes exercise. So as the first instrument, I've created this basic chord progression. We can give it a listen. It's an acoustic guitar. So this is a basic chord progression that I've just extended throughout the period of, I think in this case, approximately 8 minutes, 6 to 8 minutes. And it was just a stable chord progression to keep the same basic rhythm and nice melody, to keep the breather breathe in the same tempo of 6 seconds in and out. And the evolution of this first part was basically based on adding different sounds throughout the period of this journey, adding a little bit bass, adding a little bit of different instruments. But basically throughout the whole period of the first 6 to 8 minutes, I wanted to keep it basic, to just slowly, gradually evolve, but in general, stay with the same pattern to get the breather used to the same pace and the same rhythm. So this acoustic guitar comes from the plugin that I really enjoy using in this type of breathing exercises, longer breathing journey. It's called Hearth and Hollow. It's a great plugin which is giving me this very deep folk sound with acoustic guitar and different acoustic guitarish instruments like banjo or oud or mandolin. And this is a plugin constructed with the mind of creating a realistically sounding folk music. And I really like the sound of it, so I often use it in my slower breathing journeys. And in this case, this basic chord pattern was just created with a couple of notes played at the same time. In this case, you have only these two notes, and it's also a D here, so D and D. These two notes are repeated, but they are playing a little bit different instruments because the plugin is constructed this way. But in general, in addition to this, I wanted to also add just a little bit of delay of this kind of sounds which are next to each other, and it also creates this very authentic vibe that somebody is playing actually a guitar here and they are triggering the strums with milliseconds of a delay between them. So you can hear the first chord here. So it's kind of like a millisecond of a delay. It makes already this sounds much more realistic. If I drag them together, each and every of the sound played at the same time, it still works, but I like this kind of additional strumming kind of flavor. Always just a little bit of extra authenticity to it. And I am adding this kind of gentle delay at the beginning of every chord progression I have here. So as you can see, all of the sounds are just a little bit delayed here. So the second instrument I've started this session is a guitar from the plugin from UVI. It's called Quadra. It's a basic plugin which combines different sounds of different guitars played at the same time, but with just a little bit different flavor. So within this plugin there is already a lot of nice presets that are very inspiring, and in this plugin you can see a lot of delay effect and reverb effect and also arpeggio effect if you want to give your guitar much more interesting unconventional sound. And in this case I just wanted to get a basic guitar plug sound with a little bit of delay, which is going to help me to keep the rhythm of 6 seconds of the inhale and 6 seconds for the exhale. Let's give it a listen. Basic melody played with this guitar sound. Now I have chord progression and I have a gentle melody on top of this chord progression, which is going to give me the rhythm for the inhales and holds and exhales and holds. These two instruments sounds together like this. So I kept this melody and chord progression until 6 to 8 minutes, as I mentioned before. And after a couple of loops, I've added just a basic drone bass sound, which sounds like this. It's a very grounding sound, it's a much lower frequency sound, and in combination with two previous sounds, everything sounds like this. So in this form, everything is smoothly going to the point of 6 to 8 minutes. And in general, I wanted to use very gentle instruments here, just gentle plucks, guitars, because I know it's a very soothing and calming breathing exercise. When I create this kind of gentle breathing sessions, I always keep in mind that person is going to down-regulate their nervous system and want to calm down. So I don't use very intensive drums in this kind of sessions. I don't use intense sounds. I am as gentle as possible with the sound selection and the drums selection and how many sounds I want to use. I don't want to be in an overwhelming experience. I just want to use the instruments to keep the right tempo and gently evolving into different pieces. These are the two basic things I want to accomplish with this kind of longer breathing sessions. So we are moving to another part, which is going towards the second progression. And at the end of the first progression, you can already see I've added another instrument, and it's also a quadra plugin, but in this case it's playing just the basic melody here. We have simple melody with a lot of delay and a lot of reverb, and in combination with all of the previous sounds, it sounds like this. You can see every new piece of melody I introduce to the arrangement is slowly, gradually increasing in volume. You can see here that some of the parts, for example, the guitar melody from the beginning, I slowly started to fade down the volume of this part, while at the same time increasing the volume for different instruments for this session. In the moment of introduction of the new instruments, I let them play a little bit with the previous melody and then slowly fade down the old melody while introducing the new melodies and new chord progressions later in the arrangement. So let's move now to the second chord progression here. Now you can see the bass line is changed. Let's listen to the bass line. So now we have this rising flavor of this melody. So this is one of the things I focus also on while creating this kind of journeys. I keep this first progression pretty basic, just to give me the rhythm and just the basic emotion of the melody, creating much less emotionally saturated piece. Then during the second chord progression, I'm moving towards much more emotionally moving pieces, which are going to be much more interesting for the listener and breather at this point. So the bass line is moving in this direction. The melody of the guitar stays the same. Then I'm starting to add another chord progression with a previous instrument. It was also a plugged guitar with a lot of delay and reverb, but in this case I've played this melody with much more complicated chord progression. So in solo, this melody sounds like this. And with the combination with the bass and previous melody, it sounds like this. So it's still evolving. You can see a lot of volume changes here. I've introduced slowly again this piece of melody into the second chord progression. And after that, I wanted to use the first progression one more time, but right now in a much more evolved pattern and with much more melodies at the same time with different instruments. And in this moment I'm introducing another guitar which is going to be also quadra plugin here, and it's another melody. So in this case it's actually a melody which I created for the previous instrument, but this melody is an octave lower and with a different guitar instrument. And with the combination with the first progression of the bass, it sounds like this. And adding acoustic guitar. And then we are slowly moving to the last piece of this session, which is another evolving melody of this last guitar. And in addition, I added a little bit of piano here, acoustic grand piano with a lot of reverb to give me much more ambient and anthemic at the same time vibe, to get this piece much more emotional at the end. And also, as you can see in the last part of this session, the bass is going to also change to the second progression of the bass here. So this is the same melody of the bass as it was in the middle here. So let's give a listen to this variation of the melody of this third guitar. So it's an additional melody on top of the pieces that we've had before. Everything sounds together like this. Still the same tempo, still the same pattern, but a little bit more interesting. And then I'm introducing piano. Just a basic chord progression, again here, nothing special, just a little bit of extra of these notes that are here and there to give a little bit of variation here. And then later on, I think I've added just some additional melody to the first instrument, which is acoustic guitar here. Yeah, I really like this piece actually. I really like how the guitars played with this piano and gentleness of it, and these plucks of guitar are really something that I was really happy with at the end when I finished this session, and even a couple of months and years later when I was listening to this piece of music. I really like this specific small plucks of these guitars at the end, and this is actually the sessions that I've get one of the most satisfying results to create this kind of evolving, very gentle music piece for box breathing. So in general, I've added a lot of reverb on almost every instrument except bass here. And the last actually piece here at the end, I think I added a basic kick drum with some delay here. It's in solo. And for this I used XO plugin, which is one of my favorite plugins for the drums here. I only used the XO here only for the kick and add a little bit of delay for it. I think I didn't mention which plugin I used for the bass drone. So for the bass and drone, I think it was on Omnisphere. So I've mentioned about Omnisphere in the previous videos. It's one of my favorite plugins. It has a lot of different sounds from all around the world, and this is just a basic deep bowing glass preset that I've used, and I've probably manipulated with some settings here and with some layers. I adjusted it to my needs. At this point I don't remember what I specifically did with this preset, but in general I pick one of the presets that I like and I try to tweak these presets just a little bit for my needs. This is the way I use Omnisphere. Sometimes I use the presets because they are good enough already. There is a lot of options inside of Omnisphere that you can manipulate the sound inside the plugin, make it much more interesting, add another layer of the sound on top of it. I love Omnisphere. Once again, highly recommend it. Plugin I used for years, has a lot of different sounds there for different genres of music. One more thing maybe to mention here, I use a lot of reverb on almost every instrument. I use some EQ here to get rid of annoying frequencies, but in general, if the reverb or the delay are not in the plugin itself, I use the reverb and delay in this kind of longer, gentle breathing journeys on top of the plugin that I use. So in this case, let's unfreeze the piano here. Yeah, it's a basic grand piano stack plugin from the Ableton, and it's an outer space preset for the reverb here. And you can hear how the piano sounds with and now without. So it's a much longer tail here, much more ambient vibe. It's making the piano much more gentle, in my opinion. This is basically how the whole arrangement looks like. As you can see, I've added just a gentle drum sound in the second part of the session. During this kind of breathing exercises, I rarely use hard-hitting drums. I want to keep it basic. I want to use the instruments to keep the rhythm of the breathing. I construct the melody in a way to keep the same rhythm and pace for the breathing. And in this case, I don't have to even record a breathing sound on top of it. When I feel that the music helps me to keep the same rhythm of the breathing, I don't even record the breathing sound on top of it. And in this case, you can just pace your breathing to the rhythm of the music, and it can lead you through the whole experience without anybody speaking on top of it or anybody breathing on top of it. You can have the full music experience keeping the same pace of the breathing. So this is the way I approach this kind of longer, gentle breathing sessions. I hope you get a lot from this session. If you have any specific questions for any specific plugins or the way I use them, you can ask me these questions in the comment sections. I will do my best to give you as much detail as possible about all of these tools that I'm using. And maybe one more thing to mention here, most of these chord progressions and melodies were created with Scalar, with the use of Scalar plugin. I don't have it uploaded here, but in general I've mentioned it in one of my previous videos that I really like to use scalar for these chord progressions. I have only the basics of music theory. This is next to the Omnisphere. This is one of my go-to plugins when I construct this kind of longer journeys. Check out scalar once again. It will help you to understand music theory much quicker, and it will help you to create really great emotionally moving chord progressions and melodies that you can implement into your sessions, different variations of these chord progressions and melodies. Very useful tools, Scalar and Omnisphere, and you can build a great sounding, even an hour music piece which is evolving and interesting for the breather or for the listener. Let me know in the comments if you like this kind of dissecting of my journeys. I really enjoy doing this, and I will probably create much more of this kind of sessions that I'm explaining what I did in a specific journey. So yeah, let me know your thoughts about this, how you like it, and thanks for today, and see you in another video.